Hello, I'm Caroline, and I'm going to be discussing and explaining BTS's music video for On. Okay, so first for context, I wanted to talk about the concept of Apollo and Dionysus, which is that should be a fine balance between the two within us and within society as a whole, but there has been an imbalance in which Apollo and the Apollonian values have been not only dominating, but have been used as a way to control people. The Apollonian category would be based on mind. So it's ration, logic, thoughts, and order. And then Dionysian is body. So it's feelings, emotions, instinct, chaos. And there's a fine balance between the two, which keeps things, going. But for about 2,000 years, the Apollonian system has dominated, where mind has been valued over body, and we have been told to suppress feelings, emotions, chaos is bad, and whatnot. But I do believe that in order for the earth and for our species to move forward, this is trying to balance itself out. So bringing up of the Dionysian way to move forward. And this correlates with the knowledge we now have scientifically that our mind and our body aren't separate. So we have feelings for a reason, just like we have thoughts for a reason. And we also find our place in a point of history in which a lot of our thoughts have been taught to us through norms, governments, whatnot. And a consequence of the Apollonian system is, of course, war, capitalism, colonialism, imperialism. And this is a part of our past, and it affects the way we think. And so I'm going to call this the system, but this could be anything, any norm in which we are subjected to. And I believe that BTS has always been preaching to escape this system, and that they achieved what they achieved by breaking free from the system. And their system, the Apollonian system in which they were breaking free from, would be industry norms, social norms, and really focusing on the importance of feelings and following your feelings and not suppressing feelings. And so that's kind of what they reflect and they mirror. And it's always been kind of personal. Well, not always, because of beginning and N.O and let's say Bepse, they're kind of saying, hey, maybe what we've been told to think, it doesn't match with how I feel. And since they're singing about feeling so much, it's why they resonated with such a large audience. And it puts value again in feelings, reiterates it again. I mean, this is not necessarily new, but at their level of fame and their platform, this is, it's quite revolutionary and amazing. And I think with On, what they're getting at is facing our shadow as a human race in order to move forward, to move on. And this is facing this Apollonian system in which we have all around the world been subjected to, and moving forward by facing it. So that is my theory on what it means. So I'm going to go through and explain some symbolism and the lyrics to prove my point. And I also think that Black Swan correlates this. It's the same. It actually the On and Black Swan mirror each other in that a quick rundown of the Black Swan dance film, he is fighting with his demons, his shadow, and then he has this cage which he is trying to escape, but he keeps being held back. The cage, to me, that's kind of like the system, these thoughts, these demons, the shadow. And then he has time on his own. He reflects, he faces it, he faces them, and then he moves forward with them, kind of controlling them and having him lift him up and like fly away. So quick overview of that. So now with On, it's getting at this on the historical level, a kind of bigger scale. So the first scene starts off with war, and you have soldiers out on the field, arrows through them, and the pigeon, the white pigeon with an arrow through it dead, I believe that symbolizes a disturbance to the peace, and also the consequences of this system, which would be war and would be disturbance to the peace. And like the bird, these men also were not free because they were subjected to this way of thinking. Jungkook, he is chained and he's running away from the wall. The wall, I believe, represents the shadow. So our shadow as humans, our history. So all the bad things that have happened, good and bad, but it's pretty much, facing the shadow. And he has apparently been cast out of the village in the storyline for having special powers, for being different. And he is running away, he's resisting, and he's running far away from the wall. And have him being different and being cast out just shows a system in which if you don't conform, you're kind of cast out. And then he's resisting, but he's still chained when he's resisting. So then for Jimin, he is in front of drums of war and a child that he's in stripes and he's bald, so it reminded me personally of the Holocaust. And he has the drums behind him, and I think this shows how drums have been used in war. So again, it's facing the shadow of war, but also the song reinvents drums rather than like burning drums like bad. It's like, okay, let's take this and make it something different, accept it rather than erase it all, which is where RM scene comes in, where he is with a dilapidated Noah's Ark. And I believe that this again represents the idea that you can't just like start over and just, say, okay, you know what, I'm going to flood the world and restart. It's, the ship is crashed. So obviously it's like that didn't work. So then for V, he is in the position of Jesus. He's wearing light colors. He has the thorns on his neck. And I believe what he represents are the martyred. So this is people, events, all the consequences of the system, the victims of the system in any sense of the word. And these consequences are what force the girl, which is the future generations, it forces them to look at the shadow. And so these are the things that have happened that unveil this shadow. And he takes her to the wall, which I believe represents our human history shadow, and he takes off her blindfold and holds her hand and faces the shadow with her. So these are the awful things, let's say world wars, colonialism. I mean, the list is really endless, and it also goes on a personal level. People are all affected by this, which goes into his lyric where he says, doesn't matter where I am, I see this system everywhere. It's dominating the world. And so that is what I believe he represents. And I also want to go back to a lyric that Jimin had in which he says, I'm tired of people telling me what I need to do, who I need to follow. With each step grows the shadow. So that again is saying, when you're told how to think and what to do to be a certain way, conform to the system, the shadow just grows larger. And there's consequences to this. And that's V, the martyr, the victims of this. And then we also go to J-Hope, where he is in front of dead trees. So consequences to us as humans, war, you have the death, disturbance to peace. the martyred, and you also have J-Hope in front of dead trees, so the effect on the environment, the earth as a whole. And I really like his lyrics. He says, pain will become my flesh and blood. I believe this is the pain, pain of the past in the context of the music video. No fear that I know the way to heal this, and I'll go into that as the music video goes on. And he says, breathe on the small things, the power of the things that make me, and then in quotations, me. So it's all the things, good and bad, that have made him who he is today. And like humans, all the things that have happened in the past that have brought us here today, because every step of the way is essential to where we are. We can't leave anything out. So then for Suga's part, I believe once the shadow is faced, it's then mourned, and the martyr, the things that happened as a consequence and that has forced us to reflect. Okay, reflection, and then mourning, acknowledging, mourning. So the kids are holding the candles. And then we have the bridge with Jungkook, and in this part, he is surrendering. He's no longer resisting his restraints, and he goes into the water and has a baptismal moment in which he releases, he accepts, and he puts his hands in the water and he's freed. And then he takes out a conch shell and makes a call on it. I believe this is a call to wake up, a call to follow him in this kind of healing process, and a call to, tell us, okay, this is what I did and it worked for me. I released the restraints, the chains, the prison, and this was how I was able to dream and move forward and live this life and have this success. Because at the end of the day, what everybody in BTS did was escape the system, and this allowed them to achieve something that's never been achieved before. And so they have personal, they have their personal proof that this sort of works, and the importance of following feelings, because when they follow their feelings and express their feelings, so many people relate to them, no matter if they're in a totally different situation or not, different life. And this just shows people how we are connected on this feeling level, and how, despite how we're taught to think, this kind of breaks down that way that there's some sort of separation between mind and body, separation between people in different areas, nationalism. So I really love that part, and his lyrics are beautiful too. Where my pain lies, let me take a breath. My everything, my blood and tears, got no fears, I'm taking over, you should know. He's now accepting the pain. He's surrendering and accepting it. He's accepting everything so personally, everything in terms of our history, and now he has no fear to move forward, and this is taking over, you should know. And when he says you should know, then he does the call on the conch shell, and so he's like, okay, this is the way. And then the way, what is the way? Well, this is the dance break scene. In the dance break scene, they are dancing. It's a kind of tribal meeting. It reminded me of when the Roman Empire was conquering Europe. They were spreading Christianity, but they couldn't stop people. They converted them, but they couldn't stop them by force, but they couldn't stop them from some of their traditions, because so many people would turn up. So winter solstice, summer solstice, Easter. So they ended up having to just incorporate it into Christianity, which is why you have those holidays. So it's kind of a way that this Dionysian chaos, passion, body, dancing, the music of it is very emotive. And so the kind of message, the way that Jungkook is saying is face the shadow, accept it, mourn it, acknowledge it, and then start following your feelings. Something that we've been told not to do. And so the dance break scene, they're just letting loose. They're just releasing. It's just really a cool scene. And I love the full moon, the fire. It's just pure Dionysian. And also, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, they do have a song called Dionysus, which is clearly very explicitly saying that they're kind of preaching, bringing up and listening more to our body and feelings, and, you know, encouraging this balancing to move on, to move forward personally and as a whole. So then once they have that Dionysian dance break, then the gates open up, the trees respawn, and they're walking to heaven. It's like heaven on earth. It's happiness right here, right now, dreaming. It opens the gates and allows them to walk forward into a better reality, way of perceiving. And yeah, so that's my interpretation of the music video. And I think it represents BTS's own personal story, and it mirrors Black Swan as well, and what they've been saying from the beginning. And if you're not familiar with them, I recommend checking out these videos, whether or not you like the music. And yeah, so I'm gonna link my Instagram in the description just so you can message me if you have any questions about what I said or want me to explain further. Also, I want to say that this idea of Apollo and Dionysus, I'm taking from Nietzsche's perspective on it, from The Birth of Tragedy, which is also something I recommend checking out. Oh, and I'll link the BTS music video, the ones that I mentioned. So On, of course, Black Swan, and I also want to put a lyric video for No so that you can see that this is actually something that they've been talking about from the beginning. So yeah, thanks for making it this far. Bye!